Canelo Alvarez is upgraded to the WBC franchise champion, and Jermall Charlo becomes the WBC full champion. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the Super Chats channel donations, the Venmo donations, and the Patreon family. We working well. We got a lot to talk about. The WBC just had a hearing or meeting and released some very pertinent to the middleweight division news. And I'm not going to get into all the particular jargon that they use and these types of things, but I want to summarize what was discussed. And basically, they have listed Canelo, who defeated Gennady Golovkin for majority of the stake in that middleweight division. The only belt, in fact, that he doesn't have now is the one that Demetrius Andrade has. Boo Boo Andrade has the WBO belt. He was supposed to fight Billy Joe Saunders. He failed a drug test, so he fought the next guy in line, Andrade, Walter Katandakwa, and he beat him for the belt. And then, as you guys know, Canelo, in his last fight, he fought with Daniel Jacobs, and he unified. So he collected all the belts. Golovkin did lose the IBF belt by failure to fight his mandatory Sergey Derevyanchenko. That's why Canelo, when he beat Golovkin in the rematch, did not have the IBF belt. So now that we're all caught up to speed, the WBC pulls this and says that Canelo is this new position, which they are calling the WBC franchise champion, which, you know, gives Canelo all this godlike power. And basically the WBC franchise champion is a way for Canelo to duck Jermall Charlo and not have to fight him. You know, that's how I take it. That's the biggest takeaway. And as a consolation, Jermall Charlo, who's been patiently waiting for a big name, a Canelo fight, a Gennady Golovkin, and he's vehemently called these guys out, he has to continue to search and wait for boxing to have somebody step up and give him a shot. And, you know, the WBC really, in my opinion, they made a grave mistake here, because this is a bad look. You know, there's some people who were questioning the Maris Bradis fight in the WBSS, why the WBC wasn't involved. Some people like Eddie Hearn and Dillian White were upset that they said their champion has been waiting, 600 days to fight Wilder. And those are on a case-by-case basis, and those are different scenarios. So I kind of understand some of those issues, but the complaint that I've seen and the noise that I've seen from people in this situation with Canelo is really inexcusable. There's no real sound, logical reason for this. Now, there is, from a business perspective, if we're trying to protect Canelo, there's a reason to do this. But I just think it's unfair that a guy like Jermall Charlo, he does the damn thing, beats Julian J-Rock Williams before moving up to 160. We see how good later that J-Rock is, because he's now a unified champion at the division that Jermall Charlo left. And, he moves up, fights everybody that the WBC tells him to, because he had a generous ranking with the WBC when he moved up. Fought a guy that Golovkin was supposed to fight, Jorge Sebastian Hyland, knocks him out. People make excuses, say it's Hyland's leg. Then he fights Hugo Centeno, another, eliminator that they told him to fight. Hugo Centeno was supposed to fight on the Wilder Ortiz card and fight Jermall Charlo, but he got some kind of rib injury, so the fight got pushed back, and he later fought on the Broner versus Jesse Vargas card. So this has been a long process. Then Jermall Charlo was supposed to fight Willie Monroe Jr., and Willie Monroe Jr., for the Fox debut, it was supposed to have both Charlos, Jermall and Jermall, on the same card a couple days before Christmas. And before this major, new deal with Premier Boxing Champs and Fox. And to kick it off, Jermall Charlo won a coin toss with his brother to determine what was the main event for that particular fight card. And Jermall won it, so he was the main event. And then Willie Monroe fails the drug test with PEDs in his system. They detected some kind of banned substance, and then he fights. Jermall Charlo has to fight Matt Korobov, a decorated amateur who was already going to fight on that card at a higher weight, and he takes on that challenge, just like Jermall just recently fought Jorge Cota, and he knocked him out, and that was a late replacement to Tony Harrison. So, you know, the Charlo brothers keep getting the short end of the stick. You know, they're not getting the full credit for what they're doing, the entertainment value, the numbers they're doing, you know, and what they're representing, that Lions only shit. They're really going after it. You know, Jermall Charlo wants to fight the best. I have interviews and like I have footage with him where he's called out Canelo, he's called out Triple G, and then now the WBC does something like this where they basically give Canelo a back door to become this brand new franchise untouchable champion, so he doesn't have to follow the same rules that the standard WBC champion like a Deontay Wilder or Gary Russell Jr. would have to fight. You know, Deontay Wilder's been a champion with the WBC longer than Canelo has. Canelo arguably lost to Gennady Golovkin in the first Triple G fight, and I was at that fight. And he comes back, he has a draw on that fight. That's what the judges said. He comes back and then he fails a drug test. Then he comes back, fights Golovkin and beats him, and now he's being rewarded with this WBC franchise. And I do consider this a reward because Canelo and Golden Boy, you know, this seems to be their way. And it's funny because Oscar De La Hoya has clout chased and mentioned fighting Canelo fighting Charlo, but this to me doesn't bring that fight any closer, because the fact that they did this, now there's nothing that mandates that Canelo Alvarez will or should have to face Charlo. Beyond that, you look at the pay scale with DAZN and how they're set up, and that is a further indication of that, you know, because DAZN, Canelo, he's getting a said amount of money no matter who he fights, pretty much, you know, and I'm sure they incentivize him. If the fight is exceptionally well, I'm sure he can make a little bit more money, but by and large, he can make good money fighting Jacobs or Rocky Fielding. He's going to get more than he would have fought fighting like Liam Smith on the HBO pay-per-view, and he doesn't even have to do it. So, you know, I really like Canelo. I think he's a good fighter. I can't blame him directly for all these politics, but it's really not a good look. It would be a good look for Canelo to step up and fight Charlo, for Gennady Golovkin to step up and fight Charlo. You know, Eddie Hearn, when DAZN, this whole DAZN takeover, this is a hit for DAZN too, because when they first came out and they said they were taking over America and pay-per-view's dead, they kept saying to Charlo, "Oh, come to DAZN, come to DAZN," and people were saying, "Yeah, Charlo, all the middleweights are there, Triple G's there, Canelo's there, Andre's there, Danny Jacobs there. Charlo's the only odd man out." So guess what? What if Charlo would have went to DAZN? You know, this is why it's an L for DAZN too, because what if he went to DAZN and then the WBC comes up with this rule, and then now it gives Canelo a way to not even have to fight against Jermall Charlo. So I think this is the wrong decision. I don't like it. You know, I just think it's unfair, because yes, Jermall Charlo is now a full champion, but resume wise, he still has the same resume. He didn't have to go through, which sounds like, based on his attitude and the whole Lions only moniker, he's willing to do that. He doesn't want to be gifted anything. You know, he doesn't want someone to have to give me a handout, or he wants to earn it. That's why he's called out Jacobs, he's called out Canelo, he said he'll fight Andre, he called out Triple G. And it's very unfortunate what they do to black fighters. I've always talked about that on my channel. It's very unfortunate what they do to black fighters, because this is now, like I've been telling you, new media, and you guys get to see it firsthand. It's like the black murderers row. It really is, because you got Andrade and Charlo, and they have to go through the Matt Korobovs and Mad Selesky, guys who are probably going to be a tough fight, but won't get you the name recognition and the clout as beating a Canelo or Gennady Golovkin. All the while, Gennady Golovkin on DAZN gets to get X amount of money from DAZN, which we hear is a good amount of money, to fight Steve Rolls, coming off of a loss. And the only guy he's really pursuing is Canelo, a guy he's already shared the ring with 24 rounds and didn't convincingly beat him, you know, according to the judges and the public, you know. And now Canelo has this franchise champion junk, and it grants him so much power. Like, basically, Canelo, you have to look into the details. I don't even really want to go into it, but I was reading through it. This franchise champion, if Canelo loses, he doesn't lose his franchise champion status. They would fight for a diamond belt. So if Canelo did fight Charlo, it'd be for the diamond belt, and that's what Canelo would lose. So it's really like a WBC emeritus champion when Tony Bellew moved up to heavyweight, and he didn't really lose at cruiserweight, but since he was handling business with David Haye, they end up having an extra WBC belt for and that's how Usyk became undisputed. And then Usyk, based on his willingness, he actually later fought Tony Bellew and knocked him out, right? So we'll see if Canelo fights Charlo despite this. It's just too many belts in boxing already, and now they're creating another one. So it's eerily similar to the WBA. The WBA has the super champion, they have the regular champion, etc. Where Gennady Golovkin was able to say, hey, I'm the super WBA champion. And at the same time, before they fought, Danny Jacobs was the regular WBA champion. And we have that again in the welterweight division. And luckily for us, there's a consolidation fight between Manny Pacquiao, who's the regular WBA champion, and Keith Thurman. They're fighting July 20th, and Keith Thurman is the super champion. So I don't really like this. Yes, Jermall Charlo is a full champion, and he's not an interim champion anymore. But at the same time, Canelo is this franchise champion that they just randomly created pretty much for Canelo. It's just not a bad look. It really looks like favoritism. And it's funny because Canelo wasn't even fucking with the WBC for a period of time. He was angry with them. He don't like how he was treated. And now it's like they're almost doing anything they can. I understand they're based out of Mexico. Canelo is from Mexico. But it's like they're almost going out of their way to coddle and make sure Canelo stays in his good graces, or the powers that be, to make sure they don't piss Canelo off again. They don't want to force him to have a repeat situation, because if you remember when Canelo was mad at the WBC, that all stemmed from them pushing the rules, their said rules, to fight Canelo, for him to fight Gennady Golovkin. And when he refused to do it because he didn't want to, he said he was a 155-pound Canelo weight champion, then they had to follow their rules, and in turn it pissed off Canelo because he felt it was like a smear campaign or something. So now they created this really back door where Canelo, I was wondering how this was going to play out, because I felt like Canelo was getting good in the middleweight division because you had all this talent pool started to grow, and you had Golovkin and Canelo, and I'm like, damn, there's no way they're going to be able to run from a fight with either Andrade or Charlo, and I think Charlo and Canelo would be a big fight, especially in Texas, right? Anywhere in the world, but definitely in Texas. And I'm actually in Texas right now in Houston covering Jermall's fight. And I was wondering how this would play out, because the Black Murderers Road, where they 2.0, where they basically had all these fighters, like Triple G already said he don't want to rematch Jacobs. He said he's not interested in Andrade, and he's not interested in Charlo. So now they just gave Canelo a reason to not be interested in Charlo either, because Canelo doesn't have the responsibilities of a standard WBC champion like Deontay Wilder. He has to fight Dominic Breazeale if they tell him to, or Dillian White if they tell him to. Now Canelo, with this franchise title, for whatever reason, he gets elevated to this, and now he can't really lose, and he won't be forced to fight Charlo, which is bullshit, because Charlo's been waiting in the queue. Once again, it's very unfortunate. This is what they do to black fighters in this sport. And the reason I say that is because the fans and old media will criticize people like Jermall Charlo for simply not having a thick enough resume. Like, oh, who's he beat? Hey, I'm not convinced. The Korobov fight was tough. But then when it comes time to force the champions, or the guy with the big name in the division, the Golovkins, the Canelos, boxing gets in its own way and creates situations like this. So how could we complain about Jermall Charlo not having the names we want to see on his resume, which I don't even agree with that statement anyway. But, you know, he's already fought J-Rock, again, who's a unified champion. He fought K9 Bundridge when he was a champion, etc. But I'm talking about old media. Old media will scrutinize and criticize a guy like Charlo for not having the names. And this is the type of bullshit that goes on. And then you wonder why this happens. Triple G is a name. If Charlo could beat Triple G, his name would really be buzzing. But Triple G just recently said, after fighting an unknown, unheralded Steve Rolls, who had never fought a 12-rounder before, at age 35, he came out and said he's not interested in Charlo. He's not interested in Andrade. So what is Charlo supposed to do? He has to have his career and his livelihood. So what is he supposed to do? Now Canelo has a way out to not be pressed to fight him. And this is what boxing does. It's like they find a way. And then now the fans of old media, then they're going to have another excuse as to why, oh, I can't rate Charlo. You know, they do this with Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford called out Pacquiao. He was down to fight all these people, you know, and the Pacquiao fight never came into fruition. And they were both on Top Rank. Once again, this is what they do to black fighters. You know, they're going to criticize them, but then the black fighters a lot of times are running towards the fire to make the big name fights, and then they're always met with resistance from old media. Like, oh, he doesn't deserve a Triple G fight. Who is he beat? Oh, he just wants to fight Canelo because he wants a paycheck. And, you know, oh, Canelo's the champion, franchise champion, creative player, or whatever WBC did. You know, it's very unfortunate. But I'm going to continue to support Americans, and I'm going to consider to support black fighters that are going after it, like Jermall Charlo. That's why I'm in Houston right now. Very unfortunate news. Charlo has to keep his head up and, you know, just create his career. But with new media here, hopefully we'll make these things, these issues heard. But it's very unfortunate to see that they would rule in such a way that puts Charlo in a position where, yeah, he's the champion, but nobody wants to be gifted. Even another Texas fighter, Errol Spence Jr., Kell Brook was considering, after the Golovkin fight, moving to 154 and not coming and staying at 147, meaning he wouldn't have fought his mandatory at the time, Errol Spence. And Errol Spence specifically said, I remember in the interview, he said, I want to fight Kell. Like, I don't want to just get the, you know, he don't want to just get a vacant belt, fight Konstantin Ponomarov or, you know, some rank Leonard Bundu or something and get a belt that way. He wants to take it from the champion, which, credit to Kell Brook, he stayed around long enough, and that's precisely what Errol Spence does, and he did in Kell Brook's backyard. Now with Charlo, you know, like, it's cool that he's the full champion and recognized as such, but he still doesn't have the powerful name on his resume that he would have if he would have been able to fight Canelo, fight Gennady Golovkin, and beat them. Very, very unfortunate. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts on this issue in the comment section. This is probably going to be something discussed for quite some time, you know, and it's not a good look for Canelo. And to me, DAZN takes a loss here too, because they're sitting up here paying all this money, which is cool. You know, I'm not mad. I'm not hating that Canelo getting money, but paying all this money and without the pressure of the WBC and Charlo being highly ranked with the WBC, is Canelo and Golden Boy, are they going to press for a Charlo fight? It doesn't look likely, because they could have fought him at 154. They could have fought either Charlo, Jermall or Jermall, when Canelo was campaigning at Canelo weight of 155 and fighting at 154. But they never did. Now they're in the new division together, Jermall and Canelo, and this comes about. So Canelo doesn't even have a mandatory now, you know, and it's just, this is not a good look. Let me know your thoughts. We working. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.